this fun segment that we do with our guests, and it usually differs from podcast to podcast. So today we're doing something called quote unquote, was this said by human or AI? So we'll come up with certain quotes about product design in that space, and you'll have to tell us whether this was a quote that was said by an actual person, a prominent person in that space, or was it a quote that AI made up for us?
Okay.
Right? So I just started off with it. We can also call this the Turing test.
I guess.
Yeah.
Why not the Turing test?
Yeah. So the first one is, people think focus means saying yes to the thing that you've got to focus on, but that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to 100 other good ideas.
Human.
You're right. It was said by Steve Jobs.
Wow.
Got right. 1 out of 1. The next one. The art of building great software products is like painting a masterpiece. It requires creativity, vision, and the ability to bring ideas to life.
Yeah.
Right, again, 2 out of 2.
Okay, this is not scripted for sure.
Yeah, I didn't know. He didn't even know that the route existed. So.
Totally.
The next one. Building features for customers is about creating products that they love, that they want to use, and that they can't imagine living without.
Human.
This is AI. Finally! The quote's quite realistic.
Yeah,
I mean,
very
it's
realistic.
hard to distinguish.
Yeah, totally. I almost thought it's another Steve Jobs quote.
Yeah?
Yeah, totally.
I have 3 more.
Yeah.
Cool. The first one is, your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning. A very simple one, but yeah.
Human.
Human? Yes, absolutely right. This is Bill Gates from Microsoft. Then the next one is, a successful product manager is like a conductor, leading a symphony of engineers, designers, and stakeholders towards a beautiful end result.
Totally your AI. This is out and out AI.
There's so much buttering on the roll.
Yeah.
Cool. This is a long one. Okay. Simplicity is not the absence of clutter. That's a consequence of simplicity. Simplicity is somehow essentially describing the purpose and place of an object and product. The absence of clutter is just a clutter-free product.
Yeah.
No. This is Jonathan Eve.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Hello everyone. Welcome to NextGen Talks by Intuit, a show that takes you behind the scenes of how awesome products are built, discusses career growth, work-life balance, shares fun anecdotes, and a whole lot more. We'll be uncovering secrets and sharing real-life stories behind successful people, product, and processes. So whether you're a product manager, an engineer, a designer, or anyone who's just interested to tune in and listen to a fun and insightful conversation, this is the right place to be at. So without any further ado, let's jump into the topic of today's discussion, which is the product management interview at Intuit. I'm Ashwit, a product manager at Intuit.
I am Partha, a product manager at Intuit.
And here we have Lokesh, our esteemed guest with us today. But Lokesh, before you formally introduce yourself, we typically do this at the beginning of our podcast, where we slightly make our guests feel awkward because we do a different type of informal introduction for them.
Yes.
So we will do one for you. And Partha told me that you're into poems and all of that.
And Shairis.
And Shairis
Oh my
too.
God, okay.
He has an Instagram page as well. So yeah.
So we've taken the liberty of writing a poem for you that will introduce you informally before you formally introduce yourself.
Have
So-
you guys written it or is it ChatGPT?
So it's definitely collaborated through multiple sources. We're not as talented as you in writing poems for sure. So
Yes.
here goes. In the realm of products, a star does shine, a master of management truly divine. We welcome today a guest so bright. Lokesh is here to share his insight. With wisdom profound and vision clear, in the world of tech, he's a pioneer. From concept to launch, he charts the course, driving success with an unseen force. So lend your ears, open your mind, for insights rare, you'll sure to find. Welcome Lokesh, our guest today. In the realm of products, he leads the way.
Woohoo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
This is for sure AI.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Amazing.
Like on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend the poem to friends and family?
That's right. Oh, it's a 10 on 10.
So because we are at that point where you are getting into Intuit, which year was this and how your journey has shaped up in Intuit?
Yeah. So I joined Intuit in 2018. So
Okay.
just over 5 years and being in Intuit. And yeah, it's been an awesome journey. I mean, amazing learning experience. All the 5 years that I've spent has been there hasn't been a moment which was not intense. It's like
Yeah.
very intense, very high energy all throughout. So that's been
Yes.
that's been the journey all throughout. But I've been like super enjoying all the 5. Where did 5 years go? I do not know.
Okay, awesome.
Yep, amazing. And also to kind of talk about just Lokesh as a person, when I first wanted to transition to product, he was one of the first people at Intuit I spoke to, and that gave me like a very very clear direction of when I should really try to transition and how I can do it. So thanks Lokesh for that. Just a quick call out. So just a quick question, since we were talking about, we're going to start talking essentially about the whole product management interview process at Intuit. When did you start doing the A4Es or assess for awesome for PMs at Intuit?
Yeah, this was soon after because the role that I joined in, there were already open positions that we had to fill in. So it was in fact a part of my 30, 60, 90-day onboarding plan.
So what is that for the audience, if you could elaborate?
Yeah, so in any new role that normally you would join, you would so if you join in fresh into this role as product manager, you would carve out what's your 30-day plan going to be, what's 60 days, and what's 90 days.
Yep.
It's something it's partly a great onboarding experience
Yeah.
as well because you are very deliberate about certain things that you do.
Yes.
It fits you very well in the culture of the company, and also you get to know the people as well. So the frame that I was using in my 30, 60, 90-day plan was the 3P framework, which is people, product, and process in that order.
Yes.
So the first 30 days were more about actually engaging with everyone in the company, in the team, people that I'm going to be working with, all the stakeholders, cross-functional team members. So that was primarily the focus. It didn't mean that I was not focusing on the product, but the dominant portion of the time was mostly about people. And in that sense, hiring for the team was also part of this. While catching up on the product, understanding what is happening in the product, what has been done, what is going on right now, what needs to be done, all of that. And soon after that, or rather along with that, was more process. So in that frame, I had charted out my 30, 60, 90 day plan, and with this was more a collaborative plan, right? So while I write this down, I also take feedback from my manager and their managers, also the cross-function stakeholders, the engineering leaders that I'm working with, or the design leaders that I'm working with, data and analytics leaders that I'm working with. And hey, this is my 30, 60, 90-day plan. Do you think I could do anything differently, or I could? So all of that feedback comes in very early. So that helps a lot because now you get started on a very clear territory, and I mean very clear path. Also, that helps you cover a lot more territory in that sense, right? And one good thing that we identify in a 30, 60, 90-day plan is what is going to be a quick win. So when you come in, if you come in as a PM, maybe a feature release is a quick win.
Yes.
If you're coming in as a people manager plus PM, maybe a feature release plus hiring for your team is a so
okay.
that was part of one of my quick wins was to go ahead and backfill the positions that were open.
Okay.
And in that sense, I just jumped right in. In fact, I remember I went through my own A4A training, which is required for you to become awesome assessor. Was in the very first, I think, 10 days. I got to the training, but I started the whole A4A process for my team early on. So we were already. So I like to get more involved in the whole process myself.
Yes.
So making sure that the job descriptions are in place for the roles that we are hiring, working with our awesome talent recruitment team to source the profiles. Also monitoring the social media campaign as those profiles are getting published, or rather the JDs are getting published, and then screening and all of that was happening. And I think the second week onwards we started to actually interview. And,
Wow.
so yeah,
Pretty quick. Yeah.
I think within the first 6 weeks or 8 weeks, we already had the first hire call through all the interviews that we did.
Wow. Wonderful.
It's quite amazing. Yeah, and since you spoke about the A4A Assess for Awesome process, can you take us through what the stages typically are for a PM at Intuit?
Yeah, I think the Assess for Awesome process, first of all, at Intuit is a very very well thought through and a process through which we not just demonstrate what are we assessing for, but we also demonstrate through that the culture, the product culture at the company. So I think that's one thing which we all get trained on during the A4A training as well. So a couple of things there. One is For a PM specifically, you would have the pre-screens, right? That time when I joined, it was mostly phone screens that we were doing. It was not really the Zoom screens we're doing right now.
Okay.
Right? So the most of the screening process was over the phone. The TA partners will set up the calls, and we'll go through that whole process of pre-screening, and then go to the next step. I mean, in the pre-screening, it was mostly about whether there's a whether there's a fit in terms of basic PM craft.
Yes.
There could be one pre-screen, or there might be multiple, depending upon how the screens go actually. And soon after that, you have at least a good sense of, okay, the person who's coming into the next stage of process, because the next stage is very intense. It's a very involved process. So this ensures that we are also saving the time for the candidate as well in
Yes.
setting them up for, because there's a lot of investment of time required from the candidate side as well.
Correct.
The second phase is actually very amazing, because I know you all have gone through that, so you can
Yes.
totally relate to it. I went through that
Yeah.
firsthand myself when I was being interviewed. So it doesn't matter what level, what responsibilities you're coming in for. All PMs at all levels go through that. All designers at all levels go through that. All engineers at all levels go through the same process. So what we adopt is a very case study driven approach.
Yes.
And there's a reason for that. We inherently believe that replicating the exact environment that you will be working in, the setup in which you'll be working in, this case study provides you a very clear view and window into that. And so there's a case that is given out, and then you come in for what we call as the A4A rounds. There are 4 rounds within that, and we can talk more about that in details. But essentially, the whole idea is that this case has a problem statement. You are supposed to go in and go deeper with the problem statement as well, and it gives you an opportunity to go and empathize with the users that we're talking about, or the problem statement that we're having it. So you live in the problem world for a significant period of time, and maybe go about researching, doing primary research, and finding out more about the problem, or doing secondary research, right? So all of that helps in you getting more closer to the problem itself. And the more you stay in the problem space, you realize that solutioning becomes an automatic next step for that, right? So that's the whole idea. And then the candidates come in for a more in-person round that happens more like a full or half a day event, which is consecutive 4 rounds. And these are successive elimination. As you can imagine.
Yeah.
The first one is where you actually come and present the case and all the questions that have been asked in the case. And then you go to more. That's all gone through, and it's a panel, right? So like we are sitting here, 3 of us. Imagine one more person being here. We would one of us. Maybe you playing a role of a hiring manager, I'm playing a role of a team member, you're playing a role of another product manager, and one more PM is there.
Okay.
So that's how the panel is constituted, and this panel actually goes and works around or asks the questions about the details of the case, and try to understand the whole intent is to understand what's the thought process, how are you going about it, are you checking all the boxes in the PM craft and everything else, and that's how it goes. Followed by more like a bar raiser round, which is going really deep into the next phase. Followed by a round with a team member, and then finally a round with the hiring manager. So I think those are the four people.
Correct. One thing on the case studies, like I understand, as an aspirant, if you're looking out for roles like a PM1 or a PM2, it becomes very critical because you might come from backgrounds which might not be directly like a product manager or something from a software industry. Do you also see this in Intuit being followed for other roles like a senior PM or a GPM or a role higher than that?
Yeah, I think that applies for all the roles. So if I got your question right, I mean, do we roll out the case study for all the roles?
All the roles, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, all the way up, even the BBs and SVPs are going through the same process.
Okay.
So it's like a consistent process across. Obviously, the problem statements might differ.
Yes.
The expectation in terms of how deep will you go in solving those problems, the expectation in terms of what you bring out of those. The same case might be used for a PM1 interview and could also be used for a GPM interview. but you may see the questions are different. The depth at which you expect it to go is definitely very different, and depth and the breadth both. Right?
Yeah.
So this is the beauty of the whole case study approach. Right? You can bring out different skill attributes from the same case as you go across those evaluation process.
I think the best part of craft is also the fact that you have people from different backgrounds sitting in the room with you, so their perspective to the problems are going to be so different, and it would simulate a real world environment where you're going to be working with folks like this.
Totally.
So I think that makes absolute sense, and it was the favorite part of my interview process, actually doing the craft round as well.
Yeah, totally. I personally enjoyed my craft round as well. I mean, it was. So I'll just give a little backstory to my. I got the email from the recruiter that the next round is going to be the craft round, and I was curious, as any one of us would have been in that situation. What is the craft round? What are we expected to? We'll roll out a case to you, and you'll have to tell me certain set of questions you have to prepare. And this was happening on Tuesday. I think Tuesday, yeah. And I did not look at the case for the next couple of days, thinking that it might be a case. I'll just go through it.
Okay.
Thursday morning, I open up the email and read through the case, and the case was intense. It was.
How many days did you have to complete?
Yeah, so I had 4 days to finish it.
Oh wow.
So think of 4 to 5 days normally was what you normally get for this, and it was intense. And the beauty of it is it just takes you in. So the more, and you've gone through it yourself, right? So you get so involved. And if you start going through the problem statement, there are customer verbatims, there are things that are laying out what the problem statement is, and then you want to know a little bit more about some things. And most of our product and Intuit are all publicly available products. So you could actually go and read up. In fact, there's probably more available on YouTube about QuickBooks than it is actually available in our own material. So you have enough and much publicly available information that gives you a great opportunity to do secondary research.
Yes.
I actually also went ahead and did some primary research to understand what customers are actually feeling and how are they going about this. So it just got me in, and I was like, I felt that the time I had at hand was totally very limited.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the case with anyone, right? If you're going through that, so it was fun. And the good part about this is that the TA team, the talent acquisition team, will ask you to submit the case or your presentation before you come. If that was not the case, I would have been working till the end. 100%. Because it just takes you, and there's no end to it. So you have to decide on where you want to draw a line. Have you meaningfully answered all the questions that are asked in the case study? And it was an amazing experience personally for me as well, and I loved that whole process and learned so much out of it. And whoever I've spoken to who have gone through the A4A process, I think this is invariably you get this answer that I learned a lot through the process. Whether it's the fresher RPM hiring, a rotation product manager, or associate PM hiring, or you hire at whatever level, I think it takes you through an amazing learning process. That's the beauty of this case approach.
Absolutely. And one thing I can say is that the case study subjects or the topics which are presented differ very vividly over the years. Because the batch before us who had taken the case, it was about the product of Mint and something which Intuit actually actively is working on. And this year we were all expecting that, okay, we'll have something related to Intuit, and we had our pen and paper, everything sorted that, okay, let the case study come and we are ready to do the secondary research. And we already knew a lot of things about the company, about the products. And then I see that, okay, there's a case study to increase the adoption of indie dogs in Bangalore. I was blown away. My entire batch was blown away. But the best thing about it was that it made us go and talk to those real customers, the stakeholders who actually had those dogs. I never had a dog with me. So I thought that, okay, I'm losing this case round. But when I actually went into the thick of things, I understood that, okay, this is what a PM does. They might not actually be actively working on it, but your innate eagerness to learn about that problem space, find out what actually does not work, and find what is the big problem. Because there will be many different things which we usually get from those research or verbatim. and picking, prioritizing what you want to work on and how do you want to solve that. I think that's the amazing process which I felt that the craft round takes us through.
And
Yep.
you're here, so you cracked
Yeah.
it 100%.
I think the beauty of the question also is the openness of it. It's subject to interpretation, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That's the best part of it. You're not hard bound by boundaries. It's as much as you can think, and what you feel right is the approach is
Yeah.
what works out.
Correct.
It provides you that room to operate in, and you also at the same time have directional clarity. Okay, these are things that I have to work on. And the other question that you asked was how does it really how do you really measure? How do you really what kind of evaluation that takes place as part of the whole interview process?
Yeah.
And that's what it translates to the next steps, right? So at each round, you are going through that series of evaluation. We almost huddle together as a panel almost after every round and take a debrief on what next to deep dive on, what next to go deeper in. So it's like a very involved process. The panel is fully in, and we're constantly exchanging Slack messages to understand what's happening, what is not. That way, it's a. Our intent is that also while we are evaluating a candidate, it's also a great experience opportunity for the candidate.
Yeah.
It's a great learning opportunity. Whether you go through the interview, you successfully go on the other side or not, I think the opportunity that you have at hand to learn. I learned so much through my own A4A, which kind of gives you a very good window into how we operate into it as a company. So I think that's the beauty of the whole thing.
Amazing. Just continuing on this thread, you mentioned what kind of questions, right? We understood a lot about the craft presentations and the PM craft which the assessors look out for. What happens after that when the interview processes proceed? What kind of questions can the audience or the aspirants who are here expect? Like, is it just about the craft demo which you do, or is it like related to the projects or work experience? What is it about?
Yeah, it's a combination of both actually.
Okay.
Obviously, in different. So first round is more about if you look at the structure of the first round, what we call as the A4A round, is that you talk about what has been your experience. So like first 5 to 10 minutes are actually about you talking about your experience.
Okay.
What you bring to the table, what are you proud of, right? So that kind of already gives you a perspective into the candidate's background and whether with PM experience or without PM experience. I think that's a great way to open up an interview like that.
Okay.
And then you go into the deeper side of the case itself on what is there and what the questions that have been asked. So you start with a set of background, everything else. Mostly in those moments we are in the listening mode. We might be in the curious, a curious bone as well to understand what particular things are, and we might go deeper into that. So that's possible, definitely. But the questions are mostly around the case then. And then more inquiry happens as you open up about your thought process. Why do you think one particular success measure is the right measure to pick versus something else? What did you learn in the interview process or as you were doing the primary or secondary research? So it gives us a good window into the whole thought process itself.
Nice.
Those are questions in the first set, but when you are actually moving into the next round, which is what we call as the awesome assessor round, where you are with 2 PMs who are in the room, that's where we are actually taking it to the next level. It's like a bar raiser where you are having conversation much more deeper, much more intense discussions on, and that's all about just assessing every aspect of the PM craft. How do you fare on the product expertise, your customer empathy, how much you bring that to the table, or even for that matter, what kind of technology depth do you bring, how much close or far are you from data, how creative you are, and everything. I mean, those conversations just evolve as we go into this.
Okay. And one thing which I actually got from my batch, and as well as a lot of other PMs who are getting into this process, what is it that the assessors actually assess on? What are the parameters? Like, do they look at the candidate from a perspective of like the communications or the way they are making the presentations? Is it like about their problem-solving abilities? Like, what is it that you will actually look out for?
Yeah, it's actually a combination of all, like I was saying. So obviously, it is about communication for sure. A PM's job is about communicating what you're learning from your research, what problems you're trying to solve. So it's a lot of it is definitely about communication. But communication comes in as you're speaking. It's less about the language. It's more about the clarity of thought.
Yes.
Right? I think it's more about how close have you been to the problem space, and how are you able to effectively articulate what the problem is really that you're trying to solve. And obviously about how you are able to bring in those insights. So how close are you to the data? How data backed are your assessment or your assumptions? And also about how are you able to you are working as a product manager in a tech company, so you have to be sufficiently tech oriented. A lot of us come from tech backgrounds, have been developers. Some of us do not. But in either of the scenarios, you're going to be working on a tech product. So I think that essentially is important. So your understanding of the tech space, because you are going to hold up those conversations with your engineering partners, and and how do you so that's the whole part about the team member round. Team members are often from the cross-functional team, so they would ask you a lot of those questions. And which ways?
Correct.
How close are you to the design? Because if you are creating experiences through your product, then you are working with the designers, and essentially the PM's job is at the intersection of business, technology, and design. And unless you have appreciation and understanding of all those three, you will not succeed as a PM. And those are the different aspects in which most interviews are.
This Venn diagram in the books looks so easy to interpret. You'll always be like, oh, this looks so simple. I can do business, I can talk about product, I know a bit of design, and then you're like, okay, I'll become a great PM. And then when you actually come into the role, I tell you, it's such a difficult thing. I think that's one of the most important factors that decides how the PM grows and how they build relationships with all these other cross-functional teams. And I think this is the most important learning I have had in my first year, for sure.
And it's fun, but the job is amazingly fun. Every day is awesome to work.
You're learning something new almost every day.
Correct.
PM craft is just so fluid that you have so many things that you just learn every day. I think that's the best part of it.
Totally.
Yeah, so I think we have had amazing knowledge nuggets from you about PM craft, the interview process. Before we transition into the next phase of our conversation, we actually have this fun segment that we do with our guests, and it usually differs from podcast to podcast. So today we are doing something called quote unquote, was this said by human or AI? So we'll come up with certain quotes about product design in that space, and you'll have to tell us whether this was a quote that was said by an actual person, a prominent person in that space, or was it a quote that AI made up for us?
Okay.
Right? So I just started off with it. We can also call this the Turing test.
I guess.
Yeah.
Why not the Turing test?
Yeah. So the first one is, people think focus means saying yes to the thing that you've got to focus on, but that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to 100 other good ideas.
Human.
You're right. It was said by Steve Jobs.
Wow.
Got right. 1 out of 1. The next one. The art of building great software products is like painting a masterpiece. It requires creativity, vision, and the ability to bring ideas to life.
Yeah.
Right, again, 2 out of 2.
Okay, this is not scripted for sure.
Yeah, I didn't know. He didn't even know that the route existed. So.
Totally.
The next one. Building features for customers is about creating products that they love, that they want to use, and that they can't imagine living without.
Human.
This is AI. Finally! The quote's quite realistic.
Yeah,
I mean,
very
it's
realistic.
hard to distinguish.
Yeah, totally. I almost thought it's another Steve Jobs quote.
Yeah.
Totally.
I have 3 more.
Yeah.
Cool. The first one is, your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning. A very simple one, but yeah.
Human.
Human? Yes, absolutely right. This is Bill Gates from Microsoft. Then the next one is, a successful product manager is like a conductor. leading a symphony of engineers, designers, and stakeholders towards a beautiful end result.
Totally you AI. This is out and out AI.
There's so much buttering on the roll.
Yeah.
Cool. This is a long one. Okay. Simplicity is not the absence of clutter. That's a consequence of simplicity. Simplicity is somehow essentially describing the purpose and place of an object and product. The absence of clutter is just a clutter-free product.
AI.
No. This is Jonathan Eve.
Oh
Yeah.
Don't I?
Yeah.
Yes, totally. That's Johnny Ive.
Johnny Ive.
I think I actually went to Gen AI, right? Called Gen Studio basically, and I told where I have all these different models, and I kind of asked for give me your quotes about AI. Then it came up with all of these things. I'm like, wow, it's hard to distinguish sometimes
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
being generated.
Yeah, two mistakes. So
Yeah, we were talking about the poem in the beginning.
Yeah.
I almost went into a creative shock for about like good 2-3 months
yes.
after the ChatGPT got launched. I was writing poem all throughout in the back, and then when I actually started trying that with ChatGPT, it was writing better poems than I was doing.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my god, that was a real creative shock for a good period of time.
Yeah.
And took me some effort to come out of it.
In our first episode, we had written the small rap using AI.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes. And we were here thinking that, okay, creative jobs and all will not have to use AI because that's something untouchable. But here we have like AI first solving those problems and making it easier.
I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think very very interesting phase we are entering in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm loving how this whole thing is evolving. And
Yeah.
it forces you to think a little bit more and go beyond what you were actually earlier delivering. And taking assistance from AI is amazing. You could actually do far more.
Yes.
I think it's the whole conversation about whether these jobs will be around or not. I think the jobs will evolve. They will be around, but they will evolve, and that's what we are clearly seeing.
Correct.
And it has happened in the past as well with the other technology revolutions that we have seen. But this is clearly a very high accelerated path, and that's why people are getting a little nervous because you are not able to fathom the whole scale of it, and that's where the challenge
I
is.
feel like it's a wonderful co-pilot to be with who really helps you accelerate a lot of functions in the PM job as well.
Correct. Totally.
Yeah, and kind of going back to the interview process and before you're into it. So how does it typically differ for folks who are directly coming in like lateral hires versus those you hire directly from college?
Yeah, I think the core principles remain the same. In case of we hire fresh from college as well.
Yes.
And even there are like basically now we're also going to undergrad schools to hire PMs directly from undergrad, and we obviously go to the B schools to hire the PMs from there. For the fresh college hires, I think the main emphasis is on assessing the potential of the younger PM. So the thought process, how are you thinking about a certain problem, how are you approaching it, what's your research approach. It's more on assessing the potential of the PMs of you as a PM. The lateral hiring is more about assessing the craft of PM itself. That's a far more deeper, intense conversation. And obviously on different levels that you're being hired for, those conversations can go as intense as they can be. But essentially the core principles remain the same. We still do the A4A process, like you were sharing about your experience in college when we went to your college. It was, again, there was a case study, and it was, it could either be an Intuit product case study or a scenario which we are talking about, or it could be a totally different scenario like the adoption of IndieDoc, solving that problem. There have been similar other cases that we have given even to the lateral hires, where we haven't talked about our product at all. We are giving a scenario and just looking at how you're approaching that whole problem space. So the core principles that we talked about in the earlier part of the conversation, I think that still remains the same, and we are still assessing on the same ground. But yeah, the approach is more here assessing the potential, here assessing more the actual craft that people are demonstrating. In the second part, which is about hiring laterals, there have been so many scenarios where we have hired people who had not got any product management experience prior to that.
Oh, okay.
So even that has happened, right? Okay. So in those cases, we are again assessing for potential, right? And The conversations are more about how is the person approaching this, and obviously those will not be more senior roles; they'll be more entry level roles. But we still stick to the same set of principles across both the freshers and the lateral hires.
Amazing. Yeah.
So, you have been in multiple companies, as you talked about. How has the interview process for each of them differed to how you see the interview process, which is the assess for awesome at Intuit?
Yeah, I think different product companies I've seen have got, like when I was interviewed for the PM role at SAP, it was more internal mobility, and that I was doing a different role, but demonstrated the PM skills and PM craft, and hence moved into the PM role. That was a more the demonstration was already done, and it was more about getting further details on the craft. So that was a very different experience altogether. But any further conversations were more about these conversations were less case study driven. I mean, it was more about okay, what have you done? It was more backward looking. This is what I've done. This is what has been happening. Questions about why did you do a particular thing and so on. Right. So it was more looking at the mirror, the rear mirror. I think the Intuit case study was more here and look forward. Right. It was. I think that's the fundamental difference that I've seen in this approach, and a lot of companies are actually adopting that now.
Okay.
Which is because it gives you a setup in which you are within that frame of the problem statement given to you. You're demonstrating your craft. So that's something which is catching up a lot. A lot of companies I've seen, product companies are actually doing that. This more like hiring on the job. You're literally demonstrating what you're doing. And that kind of gives a very different perspective and picture into how you are you would perform as a PM in the role.
Yes.
It also gives you a great opportunity to actually look at the culture fit and the values fit. Right? All of those are also kind of great ways of assessing. So that's the difference that I've seen in case of Intuit. That here we have been hiring more for definitely the PM craft. Is important, and that's what we are assessing the candidates on. But it's more like here and forward looking, rather than looking back. What you've done is great. I mean, that probably is the first 5 minutes of the conversation, but the rest of the day is all about what are you doing on the case, what are you doing forward.
Got it. Amazing. Do you see or have you had occurrences where we had PMs who come from non-technical backgrounds, maybe sales or any other domains, and they getting into the program and shining through?
Yeah, a lot of examples. In fact, we have had PMs who were chartered accountants prior to transition into the role of a product manager. Okay. And look at that. I mean, it's about bringing your domain knowledge and now learning and applying the PM skills on a product which is actually a fintech product. So it kind of, when you look back at it, it makes sense because now the person that we had in our team was amazing in terms of was the go-to person for any accounting question that we had about the problems that we are trying to solve. Okay. It's great to have somebody like that on the team. There have been folks who have come from the sales background as well, right? And sales and pre-sales background who have sold products in the past. So they understand how the products, what nuances and features and functionality of the products really sell. And that translates for you becoming a better product manager as well. So assessing those people is more on the potential. I think that's the previous conversation that we were having.
Yes.
And yes, definitely there are folks who are coming from the tech background as well, and that's probably the dominant portion of it. But we've had so many. I'm an example here. I did my undergrad in architecture and design. And moved into PM as a role and have survived for past so many years.
Yeah, we see that.
I'm doing very well too. So yeah. And since we were talking about the fact that folks from non-tech backgrounds do crack the PM interviews and get into PM roles because of the skills that they possess. Right. So what level of technological expertise or tools do you typically look for in candidates coming from these backgrounds as well as from the tech background as well?
Yeah. I think one thing very important is that whether you're coming from a tech background or not, you are still building products which is a tech product.
Yeah. Okay.
You cannot have a situation where you can't hold a conversation with your engineering partners. More than that, what is your own point of view in the way we are approaching a certain problem from the engineering point of view, right? So I think a lot of those conversations come to you, and you as a PM sometimes will have to either advise or make a call on some of those decisions, right? And having a tech background helps,
Yes.
but it's not an impediment if you do not have that. But what's most important is, are you having sufficient understanding of the tech space or not? What's happening around you right now?
Okay.
And that is the core of being a PM. You have to bring that to the table for sure. And it helps you in holding those conversations. It helps you in giving the direction to the product.
Yeah, true.
We have certain products which will actually require you to be actually very, very deep in tech.
Yeah.
Which just the nature of the product is such that it's a tremendously platform oriented product where you have to have the tech experience. There's no choice. You have to. In those cases, definitely you will see more engineer turned PMs coming into those roles. But at the same time, you not having a tech exposure is absolute no. You will have to have. There's in fact one of the key PM skills that we talked about the PM expert the crowd side. One of that is technology depth.
Yes.
How deep can you get into technology, and are you able to hold conversations, right? Are you able to understand how closer? I mean, what is happening, for example, in AI today? Are you following what's happening around, and how are they shaping up the product directions and the overall direction and strategy of the product itself? That is essential. So you will have to have that. Now, these are skills that can be acquired, definitely, and a lot of PMs have acquired the skills by going deeper into it. But it's an essential one. You cannot say that I don't have a tech background, so I will skip myself from those conversations.
Okay.
No, that's not, because you're working in a tech company.
Absolutely.
Or you decide to work in a product company which is not so tech heavy.
Yeah.
Right? So, but at Intuit you will have to. That's
For sure.
There's no choice.
And since you brought up AI, right? So Intuit being a super AI-driven company,
Totally.
so what are the expectations from leaders and managers like yourself in terms of expecting those skill sets in the AI domain from aspiring PMs or the PM folks that you're hiring?
Yeah. First of all, are you up to speed on what is happening, right? And the whole conversation we had about it's about leveraging AI to deliver better experiences for the product for your customers. Also about accelerating the value delivery to your customers, and in turn generating more business opportunities, everything, right? So having a good understanding of what's happening in the AI space. What are AI models? I mean, how is machine learning really affecting and the outcomes and the whole Gen AI conversation that is happening right now? How close are you to it? There will be obviously there's it's becoming a baseline that you know that, and we are only talking about going from here forward. So that's essential. And Intuit is our whole mission is to become an AI-driven technology platform. To be a PM on a platform like that, you have to be very, very, very close to the AI conversations. So it's not peripheral, surface level discussions, but actually having deep understanding and holding those discussions with your engineering partners, even as you're writing the product and technology strategy along with your engineering teams. It's important that your engineering partners and you are able to be on the same page with respect to the conversations that are happening and the direction that you're taking. So it's definitely very, very essential. And more importantly is bringing in the business perspective on how can you leverage AI to deliver more business value to the organization, to the customers, and thinking through more holistically. I think that's very crucial.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. One follow up on this, like we all have like data science and AI and ML teams who expertise on those domains, right? What do they expect from a PM to know as a benchmark? That okay, this is something which the PM should be aware about, and the AI team should not be the one who's taking all the decisions for the product whenever it comes to AI use cases.
Yeah. So, for example, at Intuit, we are having millions of data models which are already in production today. Your understanding as a PM on how to leverage those models. Okay. Now, those models have been built by our data science team and built by your AI teams. But how are you leveraging those models? And the repeatability, replicability of the leveraging of those models is important. So for that, you'll have to understand, okay, what does this model do? And how does it, for example, if you're doing a cash flow forecasting, are you able to understand why and what data should go in for you to really to forecast this, and what kind of what level of accuracy are we talking about, and those discussions PMs will have to really get deep into that, right? I think that's why it's important that as a PM you are close to it. Yes, and the beauty is that your AI team will, your AI engineering team will actually help you in that whole conversation. So we only get prepared in the discussions through that.
Got it. Awesome. And in general, like after the interview, the product manager would want to like flourish and grow their career at Intuit. Like, what do you think is the secret mantra, or what makes the PM successful at Intuit?
Yeah, and I think this I may be talking from the Intuit perspective, but it's true for any PM generally, right? Having very deep customer empathy, able to be closer to your customers, understand what they need.
Yeah.
You can arrive at that through what we call as follow me homes. You can also, now what we're doing increasingly is data follow me homes, which is how customers are actually using your product.
Yeah.
Right, where you are bringing the usage and the analytics as a proxy for that.
Yeah.
So very close to how the customers are using your product. So deep customer empathy is absolutely important. Having very high domain experience is important. I would say it gives you an accelerated path. So if you already have, say, you're working in a fintech company like Intuit, if you have a background already in finance or understand finance, it helps you accelerate because. But these are acquirable skills, right? So we talked about. I have personally moved from multiple domains, from domain to domain, and it has helped in learning a broader set of things. The ability to switch domains, understand, get into a newer domain, and quickly adapt to that. I think that's another important thing. Creativity. I think creativity is a very key aspect of becoming a PM. And creativity, by creativity, I don't mean are you able to draw. Are you able to? A lot of us cannot draw straight lines. It's about how do you approach a problem and how do you actually solve. How do you bring in a totality of, the holistic solution of to a problem that. It's more about problem solving there and grit, right? Are you willing to really work in a high speed environment like what Intuit is?
Yeah.
And we are all about velocity. I think it's about delivering more and faster, and that's how we all. So your ability to be comfortable with that, I think that's definitely very crucial. And we talked about the technology depth and AI already.
Yeah, and one thing I feel at Intuit, it's just culturally innate within everyone and how the company operates is you can always ask anyone for like mentorship advice, and they're always open to giving you that, and that also helps you grow as a PM.
Yeah.
I've really learned that through getting mentored in my role so far. So I think
and absolutely, I think that plays a huge role, and I think we have an amazing product culture in that sense, right? I have mentors who I reach out to for so many things that I'm dealing with. And there's so much of acceptance, and the environment facilitates, and it's very conducive to have these conversations. I think that's the beauty of the whole setup, and I think it has come through multiple phases, right from the founder Scott Cook and how he crafted the whole product culture at Intuit. It's all pervasive. We have so many amazing mentors around.
yes,
And I personally take a lot of pride in saying that I have people here who I can reach out to and have conversations, whether it's about the topics on people management or on product management or product strategy. All of those are those are amazing things to reach out to.
Yeah,
absolutely. Awesome. So we reached the end of this conversation, but yes, we have a second round of the fun segment as well.
Okay.
So this is the most pressure round for Lokesh because he knows everything else but not expecting what is going to happen in the fun round.
By the way, I did not know about the first part.
yeah.
That was what. But yeah, this segment is called This or That. It's a rapid fire round.
Okay.
We don't need you to think very deeply in this case, but yeah, what you prefer. Cool. So the first.
And I don't need to explain this or that.
Yeah, just this or that.
Okay.
We might ask you like if you have a preference or why, but yeah, we would expect you to be very fast with these. So the first one I'll take. Ashwin,
Yeah,
I do
please
it?
go. Yeah.
Okay. Agile or waterfall?
Agile, any day.
Okay, awesome. A minimal viable product MVP or a full feature product launch?
MVP, but the V would be valuable.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And in terms of research, qualitative versus quantitative.
Actually, both. I cannot pick one for the other because they complement each other,
Yeah.
and you need to have both. Both qual and quant is important.
Okay. And in terms of like product strategy, I know that startups and the corporates have this discussion a lot. Customer acquisition versus customer retention.
I would go for depending upon the stage of the company that you are in and startup. So in a very early startup stage, customer acquisition is most important. But as you go through the customer acquisition, if you have a leaky bucket, it doesn't make sense. So
Yes.
retention definitely is important. I don't really have a this or that for this because this for a successful product and a product-led company, it's very important that you focus on both. Acquire new customers and at the same time have breakthrough adoption within that customer set and retain.
Yes.
Because even for startups, the customer acquisition cost, as we call it, the CAC ratios, they skyrocket if you start leaking
Yeah.
out. And that's-
Got it. Yeah. So I'll take over now. The next one is customer feedback or industry trends.
Customer feedback,
Awesome.
Wonderful.
User experience or functionality.
user experience.
Great. Incremental updates or big bang releases.
Thoughtful incremental updates which can actually result in a much larger set to be offered to the customers. But I think very important, and going back to the user experience part of it, and the minimum
Yes.
valuable product part of it, I think it's important to have those releases, but waiting for a big bang release and not shipping is probably not the right thing to do. You learn a lot through a shorter form releases, and that learning cycle is most important, I think. So I would definitely go for
I think we do a lot of that at Intuit,
Yeah,
right?
totally,
A lot of
totally.
testing and experiments to validate our hypothesis.
Got it.
The last one is innovation or optimization.
innovation.
Innovation. Awesome. Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. PMs always want to shatter the roof, shatter the glass ceiling.
Yeah, and I think every function at Intuit, it's all about innovation. The company is about innovation.
Absolutely.
So irrespective of PM, definitely we love innovation, but it's across the board. I think every single function in the org is all about innovation. That's how we are where we are, and it's also about disrupting your own self early on through those
Yeah.
innovations, and that takes you far. I mean, that's what makes us stay where we are today.
Absolutely. And thanks a lot for like spending time and doing this podcast with us. We learned a lot in this process, in details about all the stages that actually take place in the interview process for Intuit, as well as your experience from the industry and how other company also function. Now, I think like this is where I would say that hope you actually loved this because we did enjoy. We had a lot of
Enjoyed
fun as well as a lot of great content. We learned from it. We had some experiences as well as like I look out for okay, what do the other like senior PMs do? And I think that clarity I got. Did you learn anything?
I learned a lot.
Yes.
Like every conversation I have with the PM is always a learning moment for me, and today has been another moment.
Absolutely. Hope you did the same. So if you love this podcast, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment if you have any questions for us.
Yeah.
We would love to always like take your feedback in and improve the upcoming podcast so that what matters to you is something what we deliver.
Yeah.
Hope you have a great time. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Lokesh.
much.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks.
Thank
It was
you.
awesome. Amazing.
Great.
We're done.